Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the month of November as far as my reading. So once again, welcome back. As I'm sure you could read by the title and thumbnail of this video, I failed my own readathon. My challenge did not go as well as I had hoped for, so I'm here to wrap myself out and talk about how things went for me. Now, I know I had just done a sort of mid-month check-in where I had said things were going pretty well, and I mean, today's the 27th, so I have 3 more days left of November. However, I just don't see myself finishing all the books that I had set out to finish. And while I did, for the most part, stick to books that I already had in my possession, which I guess at the end of the day was the challenge, I did not necessarily end up leaning as far towards the books that I've had the longest, and I definitely didn't exclusively read books that I have owned for a long time. So that was, something that I can't say was a total failure because I did read some that I had really owned for a while, and the others, well, we'll talk about them in a few minutes. Now, I did finish all but one book that was on my initial TBR, which I will put over here. So I did end up finishing Night by Elie Wiesel, Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson. My most recent purchase was, I think I put Death Valley as that one, which I did finish. Not my usual genre or out of my comfort zone was White Women. And book released in 2023 was Starter Villain, and I did read those all. So the only book that I did not finish was the book that I've owned the longest, and that was Lisey's Story by Stephen King. And I got about halfway through it and decided to DNF it. That was an interesting one for me because I know that it's very well loved by a lot of his fans. I know that it's one of Stephen King's favorite books he's ever written. So that was kind of a shock to me that I really couldn't get through it, but I just couldn't. Like, there wasn't much happening. There were some weird sort of like odds and ends of things. That sounds funny, but there were like tangents that I just couldn't follow. That I was like, okay, I felt like I was being stuck into the middle of a story and we'd go on these tangents and I like couldn't really tell what was happening in real time and what was like a flashback. And honestly, I really wanted to finish it, but by the time I got like halfway through, I was like, I'm not having fun. And while I did own the physical copy, I had been listening to the audiobook and it had to go back to the library. So at that point, I kind of just decided it wasn't something that I thought was worthwhile for me to continue reading. And I set it aside and decided to just be done. So I did at least attempt all of the books on my original TBR. However, I had circled back and done an update on some books that I thought I wanted to read for the rest of the month. That has proved to be not so great. That is where I strayed a little bit. Now, this is for a couple reasons. So I ended up working a ton, and I think I did a bad job planning my reading when I was out of town because I ended up with only my Kindle for a little bit. And yes, I have like some books on there, some older books that I could have read and gotten into, but like nothing was really speaking to me. So I did start reading some books that I had acquired more recently and books that definitely did not fit the vibe of what I was trying to go for in this readathon. So that was obviously on me. However, I did get some cute ones read. I will definitely go through all of these in a wrap up in a couple more days because the month's not over. Who knows, I could still read a few more. I had to read a book for my book club, so that was one that I had to purchase this month and read. I had a couple of library holds come in that I wanted to kind of like get to because they were library holds. They were going to have to go back at some point, so I did read those. And then I just started to get into like Christmas vibes, and I wanted to read holiday books, of which I didn't really have any that I'd owned for a long time. So I had some that I had, you know, gotten recently. Again, like I did not acquire them in the month of November, but it was still not 100% what I was going for. In the scheme of this readathon, that was not my goal. Now, you guys are probably all super sick of me sort of making videos where I'm like, this is my TBR, and then literally I read like 2 of them. But I'm gonna do it anyways. There are a few books that I am like very committed to finishing, and I'm like embarrassed almost to like make a TBR because I'm so bad at sticking to it. But I'm trying not to make it too big because then I'll just disappoint myself. But I am about to be off through December 6th, and today's the 27th of November, and I really have very minimal plans throughout that whole time. So I'm really trying to get through like an entire book every other day. So I really think that if I buckle down and do it, that this is doable. So we shall see. We shall see. You can place your bets now on whether I'll actually read all these books, but nevertheless, some of these I have talked about, some of them I have not, but these are some physical books that I am hoping to get through in the next few weeks. So the first is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I have talked about this already. This is the author of The Silent Patient and The Maidens, and this is like set on a Greek island where there's a bunch of like famous celebrities that get trapped there, and this guy is kind of telling the story, and it's very much written in like a fourth wall type way, so I think that will be really good. Next is Mercury by Amy Jo Burns. I did talk about this in my January 2024 releases video, and it's definitely one that's sparked my interest. I would like to be able to review this prior to its release in January. This is it's a family drama set in the early 90s about a woman who gets tangled up in this family and marries one of the brothers and kind of mothers the others. You know, secrets come to light after years and years of hiding them, and so it's just one of those. I usually don't like to know too much about like family dramas exactly because I like to kind of just let it take me where it takes me, but I am looking forward to reading this. Class by Stephanie Land. She is the author of the book Maid, which did become a television series on Netflix, I think, and it is a memoir following her as a hotel maid with a young child. Sorry, that's the other one. This, I believe, is kind of a sequel because Maid really shone a light on the situation of poverty in the United States and how it's a cycle and how people can't get out of it. And so once that book came out and it did so well, she decided with her, like, you know, bit of money she now has, she was going to go back to school and learn how to be a writer, and kind of it covers like how crazy student loans are and how to feed yourself and your family and live while you're trying to get an education. And it just seems like a really, really interesting and insightful book that will be very different from, you know, what I've ever lived. It'll be a really eye-opening read, I believe, that, like, you know, even someone with a good bit of success and money that she didn't previously ever have, like, it's the same. Like, there's still so many worries and the way that the system's set up for people to fail, and I just think that will be a really insightful look at school. Next is Alice Sadie Celine by Sarah Blakely Cartwright. This is like the longest synopsis, so I'm not even going to read it or try to explain it, but it is about 2 women who have been best friends since high school, and they end up going to college together, and they live on the opposite sides of California at this time. Sadie's mother is Celine, and basically Alice, her best friend, and her mother, I think, fall in love. So we will see how that goes. This is a pretty quick one. I don't even think it's 300 pages. Yeah, it's like it's barely 250. So if you need to squeeze in a last minute book, try this one. But I, for one, am looking forward to reading this and just kind of seeing where it goes without knowing like too much about it. The Puzzle Master by Danielle Trisoni. This is kind of like it's not complicated, but the synopsis is reads complicated in a way. This is about a man named Mike who was a up-and-coming football star, and then he had a traumatic brain injury which caused him to lose a lot of his abilities but developed savant syndrome. So he can now solve any puzzle. He creates puzzles, puzzles are his thing. And he ends up meeting a woman who is serving 30 years in prison for murder, who hasn't spoken since she was arrested 5 years prior. And she ends up drawing some kind of crazy puzzle, and this man Mike is brought in to try to figure it out because they think this has some sort of clue to what actually happened and what is she trying to communicate. And so it just seems like a really interesting sort of book. It's really heavy, so I don't know. It's long. It's almost 400 pages, but I think I can do it. I'm looking forward to reading it. All of those books that I have just talked about were sent to me by the publishers, so thank you so much to them. I will link them down below. The last two are some Christmas books that I purchased, and I am just so excited to read. I'm gonna take a little break after the one I'm currently reading. Of course, I'm in the middle of a Christmas book right now, and after that point, I will read something else and then get right back into my Christmas reads. So the first is the Christmas Orphans Club. I did talk about this in some previous videos, but it's kind of like a found family situation where this group, they get together every year for Christmas. They all kind of don't have homes to go to for the holidays. And then as they get older, their friendships start to change, and they realize that maybe other things are important besides their traditions. And so I'm just looking forward to it. It seems like a really cute sort of rom-com, but maybe less of the rom. And that's fine with me. I'm looking forward to a friend rom-com, if that's a thing. And the last one is Snowed In for Christmas. This I kind of bought on impulse, but it seems fun. It's about a sorority mom who is just used to not being taken too seriously. She lives in a sorority house, but she gets stuck in it during a winter storm that she underestimated. And the power goes out, so the football coach of the school comes over to be her blizzard buddy. And it goes from there. We'll see what happens. But it does sound sweet. I do love that the author's name is Jacqueline Snow, so that's fun. And those are the books I'm going to try to get through in the beginning of December and maybe the next couple days in November. I will be back shortly with a full rest of November wrap up, but there was some insight into how this month played out for me and my readathon, which sadly didn't go exactly as I wanted it to, but I hope to hear some people telling me that it went better for them. So please, please, please let me know in the comments if you participated in that backlist binge readathon, and if you did, how it went. I would love to have some inspiration for me for, doing this again sometime. It is what it is. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, I would love it if you would. And I